This is Eat the Rules, a podcast about body image, self-worth, anti-dieting, and intersectional feminism. I am your host, Summer Inanen, a professionally trained coach specializing in body image, self-worth, and confidence, and the best-selling author of Body Image Remix. If you're ready to break free of societal standards and stop living behind the number on your scale, then you have come to the right place. Welcome to the show. This is episode 317, and I am with Danni Amapoundcake Adams, and we are talking all about trends that are influencing our body image. We're recapping some of the beauty and other related trends that we've seen over the past year. We're talking about the quote-unquote ballerina body, the soft voice, a face standard, trad wives, make America healthy again, and more, all the kinds of things that influence diet culture, wellness culture, and beauty standards. Plus, we're excited to share that our spring cohort of the Body Image Coach certification program is opening for enrollment on January 28th, 2025. Get more details by going to bodyimagecoachcertification.com. You can find everything mentioned in this episode at summerinanen.com/317. I want to give a shout out to SGT Camo, who left this review. I'm a brand new listener to this podcast and in the beginning stages of rejecting diet culture. Finding this podcast has really struck a chord inside. Summer's choice of words and phrases are those that make me feel as though she is one of my oldest friends and talking to me in a way that I don't feel lectured. Love this so much. Thank you. Thank you so much. I really, really appreciate that review. It's an easy way to help support the show. You can leave a review by going to Apple Podcasts, search for Eat the Rules, then click ratings and reviews and leave a review. If you have the means to do so, I would love you to support the show financially. You can do that by going to Ko-fi. That's ko-fi.com/Summer Inanen. And for as little as $5 a month, you can help keep the show on the air for just maybe a few more episodes, a little bit longer. And you'll get access to my mini course, Conquering Negative Body Talk, as well. And if you don't have the financial means, subscribing, reviewing, sharing, those are always great ways to help out people who are providing you with valuable information. I also have free stuff at my website, including the body image roadmap for professionals who work with people who have body image struggles, as well as the 10-day body confidence makeover. Just go to thebodyimagecoach.com to find everything there. My colleague, my friend, Danni Amapoundcake Adams, is back on the show today. We love to get together every few months and talk about stuff that's going on culturally that influences our body image. And if you don't know Danni, she's an influencer, a writer, an activist, a body image coach, a social justice teacher, and speaker from Sanford, Florida. We co-created the Institute for Body Image, which runs the Body Image Coach Foundations program, as well as the Body Image Coach certification program, which we'll be talking about at the end of the episode. But if you want to learn more about that, you can go to bodyimagecoachcertification.com. All right, let's get started with the show. Hi, Danni. Welcome.
Hey.
We are going to get into some stuff today. What is the theme? We're talking about like beauty, cultural trends, like how beauty standards, like what we've sort of noticed over the last year or so, and how that ties into like wellness culture and capitalism and everything else.
Call it what you need to call it. Yes.
Yeah, I think when we were talking about collaborating on an episode, it sort of came from the discourse around that article that came out around the ballerina body being the new standard of beauty. Like this idea that the body is really, really thin, but also athletic. So kind of like you need to look emaciated while also looking, like you have muscle development there. And it's really kind of a progression of the Ozempic era. Like it's just an evolution of that. And I think when we saw that, we thought, okay, let's focus our episode around that. And then it started to trickle into all these other topics that we'll get to.
Yeah, honestly, I was thinking about when we were discussing it, Twiggy. Do you remember Twiggy the model?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, this era reminds me of like all those photos I seen of Twiggy at the time. Like, I don't know what's going on. Well, I do know what's going on, but honestly, it's just really dangerous, especially because so many young people and adults, just be honest, are being overexposed to this. It's just not about questioning our bodies at this point, but participating in unsafe, weight loss drugs, people doing anything to lose weight. I just think we're going to see a huge increase of people having body dysmorphia, eating disorder. And it's sad to see that we're seeing a regression of body positivity.
Oh, yeah. And I think it's like even more extreme than Twiggy, because Twiggy was extremely thin. And same with like when you think about Kate Moss in the 90s, it was like that heroin chic. But there's this added layer of having muscles now, in addition to that, which is obviously like probably mostly achieved through, unless your body's kind of naturally like that, which some people are more naturally like that. But there's more effort, right? I think it ties into this idea of putting in work, right? Like she worked hard for her body, and then layering that on with like most people probably have to get some sort of plastic surgery or be on some sort of weight loss drug in order to also achieve that level of thinness at the same time. So I feel like...
And then let's be honest, some people will never achieve it, but will go through the same unsafe measures to get there. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Most people, I think. It's like a very, very impossible standard on top of what was already like an impossible standard. It's like, it's made it even, I think at least that's my perception, is it's like, it's not just like super skinny. It's like skinny and muscles. And I think we saw that, like I sent you, I didn't watch the Golden Globes, but I sent you like the article with just some of the images of the celebrities, and you can you sort of see that being portrayed. Like you see those bodies now. And I don't know if that's new. Maybe they sort of look like that before. I'm not sure. You might know more because you're into that, into like pop culture.
Yeah, no, honestly, people were talking about it with Wicked, like looking at Ariana Grande, looking at Cynthia, right? Like the movie I hear is very beautiful, fans of both women. But however, there's just been conversations about, wow, their bodies look extremely different than they did before. Not only that, but let's talk about voices are different, but they are really, 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 really thin. And also, like you mentioned, with a little bit of added muscle, it's just an entire rebrand happening. And it's so concerning. And especially people, I think there was an interview with Ariana Grande and she was like asked about it and she's like, I don't want people talking about my body. Like, come on, guys, like, be honest. You understand that you're a public, well, anyways, because I was getting ready to drag, but I'm not going to go there.
Well, it's hard, right? Because there is this discourse around we don't want to be commenting on people's bodies. And I wholeheartedly agree with that. But, how do you promote how do you not talk about it, right? Like when it's so incredibly harmful, and because it's rooted in anti-fatness and white supremacy culture and patriarchy, which we'll get to more of that as we sort of see how these things spiral into other trends that we've noticed. But I mean, it's an important conversation because we're seeing more people facing weight stigma as a result of these trends and weight loss drugs. And so it's like, is it bad I don't know if we're talking about specifically like individuals' bodies or more like the way that they've glamorized that appearance and the way that that's like influencing, just the dominant discourse.
All right, this is probably going to be a problematic take, but you know what? Reach out to me, y'all, if y'all think this is too problematic, or we want to talk further about it. But I deeply believe that we have to be honest about being what it means to be a celebrity. Sometimes you do forfeit, you give up some things, and a part of being famous is you remain famous if we talk about you. It is true. And also because of the high level of promotion, like this is global, Wicked is promoted to young girls. And so we have to have honest conversations. And, there had to be some intentionality behind making sure that both women looked that small. And it's not just them. And I don't want to like keep poking, but right, like Wicked is definitely gonna be one of the greatest movies of the century right now. Let me just give them their credit. So we have to be honest about, like, it's not just them. We're seeing it with other celebrities. Even we're seeing a reversal of the BBL. Like, people want to get closer to whiteness. And what is whiteness? It is thin. It is being really small, having this small voice. Like Ariana Grande got a whole new voice. Okay, it's there is very clear that they're saying, okay, this is what femininity is right now. This is what it means to be a girl. This is what it means to be soft. All the things, because if not, we would have got Ariana Grande from 2 years ago, like, who was blackfishing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. Which, by the way, like, I don't follow Ariana Grande at all. Like, I knew nothing about her at all because I'm older, like, just not my demographic. But having then watched the video that you sent me, which was it Kimberly Nicole Foster? Was it that video?
Okay, it's my favorite person, yeah.
So we can link to it in the show notes. And it's like a whole discourse about it because I didn't realize the change that had happened, but that sort of spirals into like the other thing that we were talking about offline before this episode was the posts that Jamila Jamil has been posting about the use of like what she called, quote unquote, the gentle voice, which then upon a little bit of research, it actually has a name and it's called the fundy baby voice because it comes from the fundamentalist Christians and women like really having that sort of like sweet, gentle, submissive voice. And that term was coined by someone named Tia Levings, who wrote a book, which I've just downloaded, called A Well-Trained Wife. And I believe it's about her story kind of escaping from Christian fundamentalism. But it's like, again, just feeds into this ideal of being like more fragile, more submissive, more like smaller in every way, shape, and form.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. The voice thing is really interesting, but I think the reason why I say that is because I know you don't follow pop culture, but I think her name is like Sabrina Carpenter, and she's being marketed to Gen Z, and there's this huge thing around like, oh, she doesn't use like this soft voice, and I find that to be like interesting because like it's kind of like one of those things where we don't want to take women seriously, and so we need women to empathize themselves, women to pretend that they're dumb, even in uncomfortable situations. Like we want women to use a voice that kind of sounds like a baby because it presents as like non-threatening. And at the end of the day, like I really believe that at the core of it is that people hate women. I'm sorry, I just gotta say it. I think at the core of it, people hate women and really want to package women into these boxes. And sometimes the way that we like talk about, and this is just a quick pivot, like sometimes like the way that we put these messages out, like women need to be submissive, women need to have smaller voices, women need to be small. We kind of wrap it up in a bow as if like it's gonna give women some form of safety, and it's not.
Yeah, and almost like power in a way, like desirability and potentially, financial stability as a result of that desirability. So it's interesting how there's that like, that dynamic at play there with making yourself smaller in every way, shape, and form can afford you safety and security and potentially like more social currency.
And you will get closer to whiteness, which is not true.
Yeah, but that's exactly it, right? And I think so that's one of the things that I asked you. And by the way, I've never been known to have a soft voice, like ever.
And I'm code switching right now.
Some people do naturally, and I think it's important to like, if that's your voice, that's your voice. But I think for a lot of these people, it's like it is forced. It is like putting it on like this. Like it is if I were to start talking to everybody like this. So like breathy and whispery. And I don't even remember where I was going with that. But I think that I forget my line of thought there. But I think we have to think about like what it's signaling. And I remember the first time I sort of heard about it or saw it was in that documentary, Keep Sweet, Pray and Obey. I don't know if you've ever watched that on Netflix. The Fundamentalist Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. It's like a documentary about how, like just the horrible abuse that happened in that cult, we'll call it, or church. And that's where they condition girls to like, quote unquote, keep sweet and like in your voice, and you never raise your voice and you submit to the man, and et cetera, and et cetera. So it really is tied to Christian nationalism and like you said, white supremacy. And this reminds me of what I was going to ask you, because the question I had for you was like, is that a white woman thing? Like, are you noticing that with Black women as well? Or is this just more of like I mean, I know it's proximity to whiteness, but I'm just curious about whether you've noticed that anywhere.
Well, let me just say this. I'm not going to be using any voice and baby voices, because I already have it hard enough code switching between having a Southern accent and trying to speak in a more American accent that people understand. So, but yeah, I would say, be honest. Yeah, there is a thing, and especially in like the femininity space and hypergamy space amongst Black women. But it's not that prominent, but it is a conversation happening online around how to make yourself seem small, sound more feminine, get what you want from a man, get him to buy you things. And for some people, that may really work, but it's just exhausting, because overall what I'm really feeling is there's all these messages about what women should be doing in order to be accepted by men, but there isn't more conversations happening and more actual structural change happening around men, making sure that women are safe, that women are taken care of, or that women are loved and appreciated for their labor. And that's just a real problem for me. I'm not doing all those changes, but yeah, I'm seeing the messages.
Yeah, 100%. And I think that ties into the whole like trad wife trend that has been happening, which is like traditional wives. So people adopting these roles where they are, they're the homemaker, which there's nothing wrong with being the homemaker, but it's like, it's like influencers who are doing this. And it's really, they're being submissive to the husband. They talk about like serving the husband. Like if you want to go down a rabbit hole, look up the hashtag tradwife and you'll see some pretty horrifying things, like people posting like my body, his choice. And it's all about serving the man and conservative ideologies and values. And I think that ties into this whole thing about being smaller, being more submissive, and really that patriarchal dynamic of like men being higher on the hierarchy than women, and like continuing to sort of like further that gap. And then I don't know what your thoughts are on it.
Yeah, I think it's also a piece to add, also bearing children. Like a lot of the trad wives have multiple children, and like I would say they stay pregnant. And like we've seen some trad wives come out and speak out about like how uncomfortable it has been to keep up with this, or how they want out, all these different things. But something I want people to really pay attention to about trad wives is that they are influencers who are making tens of thousands, millions of dollars. Nar Smith, is the only Black trad wife that I know of, and she's one of the biggest creators. And what I find to be interesting is that people don't really understand that a lot of what we're seeing is well-kept influencers who are either with men who are taking care of them. Some of the biggest trad wives, if you look into their family, the person that they're married to, the guy is also wealthy. And so this isn't realistic. This is art. This is creativity. This isn't real life. At the same time, for most of them, right, that they're artists. But for the girls who are living these experiences, like, are we ensuring that they are safe? Are we really talking about safety? I don't know. I'm just super concerned about all the things that I'm seeing online.
Yeah, and I think one of the things you mentioned to me was that people who don't have wealth and who are, at home with their children, like, that's a whole other different experience than what trad wives are sort of like, illustrating online, right? Like, I think that's one of the things you were saying to me.
Yeah, you think Nara Smith does not have childcare while she's making cough drops from scratch for her kids?
She made cough drops.
Yeah, she makes cough drops. I mean, most of the trad wives are like, "Oh, my kid was sick today." Like, let's be honest. You had dye, the right color dye in it. Like, this is curated content. Like, oh, some of the trad wives be like, "Oh, my husband wasn't feeling well today," or "My husband desired bread from scratch." You just had all the ingredients, girl. Like, no, it's not real. It's very much so curated. The clothing is matching what they made. And that's just a problem with influencer culture in general. But the reality is, like, these messages keep being pushed to women that this is what you should be doing. This is the way that you're going to get a soft life. And, is the life really soft, or is it performed softness? Because under capitalism, like, the ideal is that we all work, and that we all work. I don't know. It don't seem soft. It seems like a prison to do what men say.
Yeah, and it's this filtered, glamorized view, or like they're projecting this filtered, glamorized view of emotional and physical labor, like that it's like effortless and that it's like easy, and that, oh, it just takes, 10 minutes to make this from scratch. And it's like, it ties into this like white supremacist value of perfectionism, that it's not only we have to like, look a certain way, and we have to behave a certain way and make it look really effortless and easy and be happy while we're performing this labor. And like, that is not the reality at all. And I think that then makes people feel like they're doing something wrong, like they're not measuring up, like they're not good enough. And so it's just, yeah, furthering kind of like this overall ideal. Like, if we think about the ideal woman now, it's that whole trad wife movement, I think, like, pushes it to also glamorize this view of like emotional and physical labor that goes into like raising children and having a house and being in a relationship as well, I think. Yeah.
I'm not a mom, but I have a mom, right? And so living in a home with like a mom and a dad, like thinking about what would it have been like my mom was making bread all day from scratch, raising my brother and I, no childcare labor, then coming home and, my dad comes home, she has to have dinner made for my dad, taking care of his clothes, all the thing is like, it's not going to be that glamorous. She's not going to have a face full of makeup. She's not going to have time to be well rested, to curate all the content. Like, it's unrealistic.
Yeah, 100%. And so that's obviously really rooted in conservative ideologies, like, turning the clock back. And that sort of ties into some of the other trends that we're seeing, especially related to health, which is, with the Make America Healthy Again, RFK Jr.'s whole initiative to remove seed oils and quote unquote like toxins, and how that's influencing, wellness culture and diet culture. What are your thoughts on what you've seen there?
Oh, Lord. It's so interesting the way that we start talking about food, like, oh, we'll remove toxins. But and you think about like lots of Black and brown communities, local governments have passed legislation so people cannot grow in their own yards. Or lots of people are living in food deserts, and we're not talking about how do we get people access to food. And I think something I was talking to you about, Summer, earlier, was that oranges. Like, in Florida, obviously I'm a Florida girl. We are producing less oranges. In 2021, we were producing 41 million crates of oranges. This year, we're going to only produce 12 million. You know, that huge decrease because of Hurricane Ian or, and also other economic impacts have limited how much oranges that we're producing. So that means that we're going to either see increase in how much increase in price, or we're going to see less of it. And that's just the oranges, right? Like, what about all the other produce that is coming from our border states? So, you know, I just think that people have an unrealistic expectation about what changes health, and our economy is going to have a huge impact on people's well-being and just in general with food.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah. And like I was telling you, I went down a bit of a rabbit hole preparing for this by looking at some of the like Make America Healthy Again content online, like some of the influencers that really promote those. And we're really happy about that change. And they truly believe that people just need to put in the effort and that everyone can reverse disease if they cut out toxins and chemicals and make all their food from scratch. And they really believe that like the upfront cost of like getting new cookware that doesn't have certain toxins in it, which I didn't even realize some cookware did, but apparently it does. Replacing all your cookware and like going to like a thrift store to do it to save money, that ultimately you just need to put in the effort and that will offset your future healthcare costs. So it's like this completely delulu view of health, doesn't look at any of the social determinants of health, doesn't look at any of the systemic barriers for people having health. Like they don't talk about the fact that maybe we should just give people better access to healthcare as the first step to improving people's health, and instead look at it on this like individual level, that whole like individualism, which is really tied into, you know, white supremacy culture as well, which you and I talk a lot about in our course. But I had to stop looking at it. It was just too painful to keep reading these posts.
At the end of the day, most of these people do not care about healthcare, because at the end of the day, there's some things that we can really pull out. For example, they also want to ban DEI. Well, if you want the ban of DEI, then you have to think about the impacts that it has on healthcare. We literally need research and studies and funding to go towards healthcare initiatives that look at different racial and ethnic groups, that look at different class structures, that look at gender difference. And if you don't want to look at those things, or you don't think those things are of value, how can you really say that you care about healthcare? You really don't.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, they're looking at the world through this vacuum of privilege, you know, whiteness, classism. They're not looking at it from any other viewpoint, I don't think.
This is what it sounds like to me. They're saying if you eat a salad and you go work out, you will live forever. And that's a huge problem. I think I was telling you about this argument I was having with a personal trainer, and he was like, health is wealth. People who work out, they have the best mental health. And I said, but baby, you are depressed. What, what are you saying right now? I think that if you start asking people like the epistemology about what they believe, you'll really understand that they don't really know what they believe. It's just like talking points that have grown on us, that we've attached ourselves to, and that we haven't really sat and said, does that really make sense? Like, how many of us, if we really sat down and said, I know people who have diabetes who are not fat. I know people who have high cholesterol who are not fat. I know people who have cancer who go to the gym every day. I know people who have had heart attacks who have low BMI. If we really sit down and look at the things around us, we'll realize that this isn't about being small or fat, that obviously some people are just going to get sick. It's inevitable.
Yeah, 100%. And that I think is like a fear that people don't want to talk about, which I think ties into one of the last things we were going to mention, although there's another Jamil post we didn't get to, which we can throw in at the end, but is just the guy who the whole, like, because a lot of the stuff we're talking about is really related to people who identify as women, but to bring in like the conversation around, okay, what are the trends for men? Like, what are we noticing? And I think it's like this idea of trying to live longer, like longevity, and like their disordered habits come from this mindset of like trying to like biohack themselves to better performance and better longevity. And there's that guy, Brian Johnson, who is that like super wealthy guy who does all those wild things to himself because he wants to like stay a certain age. And like, I don't, whatever, to each his own. I think he's probably pretty disordered, but anyways, I think that's the other thing, like that's another piece of this that's coming in and like feeding into this idea that like we have control and we can get control. And I think so many people are honestly just afraid of getting sick and dying.
Yeah.
Any other thoughts on him?
No,
or that whole movement?
What I have to say, something I want your viewers to come back, because what I have to say might not be too nice. It might not be too nice. Part of me is like, this is nothing. Black people don't think about stuff like this seriously. We just don't. And also, there's some kind of like class dynamic. We have to, some people are too rich for their own good, because this guy is like extremely wealthy. It's not like, to be able to put money into research to find pills that you believe will help you live a long time and to be able to promote those medications. He just has money to waste. That's all I have to say.
Yeah, if I had that much money to waste, I wouldn't be doing that. I'd be like on an island somewhere. I would be giving back to other communities and people, and I certainly would not be taking 100 supplements every day.
I told my grandma about this story, and she said some people are just afraid to go to hell. That's what she told me.
I love your grandma. That's amazing. I love it. That's so good. So the only other thing that we were going to talk about that we didn't talk about is like, so Jamil also made this post about how there's this trend of like everyone's face, particularly when people who identify as women, looking exactly the same. And I've talked a lot on this podcast about, anti-aging culture. And it was just interesting because she made this post, and I can link it in the show notes. I thought it was a good post. She got attacked a bit for like criticizing or judging women. And I think she was pretty clear that she's not. She was more just like, is this like, are we all okay with this? Like, why are we doing this? Why is there like an ideal face now? Because I don't think that existed before. Like before, there was always kind of an ideal body, but there was a variety in the way people's faces looked. And we see variety in men's faces. Like men are allowed to have different faces. They're allowed to have wrinkles between their eyebrows. And that variety is like slowly going away when you look at women celebrities.
I just think the face trend just is gonna constantly change, but I don't know. I saw Jamil's thing. I was like, I have mixed feelings, because I think one of the pictures was chosen was like Michael B. Jordan. And in many cases, like Michael B. Jordan's features are black features that have not been mostly accepted. I think Michael B. Jordan's like a beauty appreciation is really new, because people who look like him, like Jonathan Majors, despite the story of his life, people who look like Michael B. Jordan, Jonathan Majors have been called ugly and haven't traditionally been, I forget this woman's name. She's Ghanaian, but I think she's from the UK. I think her name is like Michelle. She's a part of, oh my gosh, I can't think, but Chewing Gum. I think the show was called like Chewing Gum or Bubble Gum. But anyway, she has similar features and they haven't really been accepted. Anyways, I'm going on this tangent to say, is overall, she's right. I think white features or whatever is the most normalized features of white people in this moment will always be the standard for everybody. And black people, no matter what, unless they do some type of face altering, will always have to adjust. So I don't even know if it's just like strictly gender for me, because I have to think about like, Afrocentric features would just never be the beauty standard unless white women are paying for it and put it on. Like, you remember like big lips? Kylie Jenner was put on the big lips, but you black got big lips, it's a problem, you know? Like the slim and thin nose. I haven't seen big nose become a trend yet. But like the slim nose, it always gets slimmer and slimmer and slimmer. And it's always like pretty obvious when people of color do it, because our noses traditionally, like a lot of our noses aren't really smaller. Anyway, I don't know. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I 100% agree with you. I think it's like,
I was rambling, sorry, but I had so many things to say.
I know. No, it's just like, it's interesting discourse, right? Because I think the overarching issue I see is that like the pendulum has swung. Like we had the body positivity little heyday where we had some diversity, no systemic changes. But now the pendulum has like really swung opposite that. And now we have more rigid, more unrealistic standards that require more labor, physical, financial, especially when you think about changing your face or investing in anti-aging procedures. And so I hate to say it's like a grim outlook, but I perhaps wonder if maybe the pendulum will swing back eventually and maybe things will change. But I think overall, none of this changes systemically.
I think it's going to take 10 years. I think because of the political climate that we're in, also like people are trying economically, like this is why body positivity was never just about like, we have to feel confident about our bodies. It has always been socially, politically, and economically. It all like works together in how we liberate women and people who are in larger bodies and other marginalized bodies, because we can't just think about it as like, I want to feel good about myself. Okay, now also what is next? Do I have the means to also like really survive these structures? So for example, if we go back to like thin is in, like what does that mean under structure? That thin is like the smart people, we stay there. If we stay there, right? Thin is the smart people. Thin women with small voices are the women that, you know, really should get the jobs. I don't know, let's just say that. But like, what structural protections are there? And in the context of the United States, there won't be any under conservative leadership. And so we'll be seeing for quite some time that we'll be cycling in this thinness until people also recognize that it's going to take more than us taking pictures with our stretch marks, or we're going to have to really get activated.
Yeah. Yeah. And you can't get activated if you're hungry.
Sure can't.
Let's pin it there because I feel like we could go on. And I want to make sure that we talk about our body image coach certification, which will be opening for enrollment on January 28th. The first class is on March 11th, so doors close on March 7th. We do have early bird pricing for just over 2 weeks until February 14th. You can save $500, which makes it about $200 a month if you do a year-long payment plan to join our body image coach certification, which gives you all the tools and resources to be a go-to expert to support clients with body image. So whether this is an area that you want to get into, or if you are a dietitian or a therapist or a personal trainer and you want to add this to your repertoire of services or be able to more confidently help clients, then definitely check out our course. Do you want to say anything about it, Danny? I kind of just took over there.
Yeah, no, it's okay. I think that if you are a practitioner and you want to work with people who are struggling with body image, overall, like our class is just an amalgamation of tools that can help you really get people to a place where they are okay and they feel okay in their bodies. We also spend a little bit of time talking about the inner critic, self-care, asking really critical questions, all the things. And then if you're not doing the self-studying and doing like the group class, you have the opportunity to learn from different professionals from around the globe. Like our course is very diverse. We've had students from Thailand. We have students from Canada. We had students in Mexico. We've even had, I believe, a student in, was it Kenya at one point? Or I don't know, I forget the name, which country, but we've had quite a bit of students from around the globe. And so it's just a great opportunity, and you get some time to spend with Summer and I. You get all of the recap videos from the courses. So I just think it's a great opportunity, and check us out.
Yeah. And I think to your point, like some of the feedback that we've received that people have found so valuable compared to any other course that they've taken is the way that we talk about power and privilege and bias, and we set that foundation up front. And then that's woven through all the conversations that we have. So whenever we talk about, implementing tools, we're always looking at it from a social justice informed perspective as well as a trauma informed perspective. I feel like those two things go hand in hand. And that lens, and when other people talk about courses that they've taken, they're like, no one ever talked about bias. Like no one even mentioned white supremacy culture and like how that can show up when you're working with people. And so I think that's what makes our course so special and so powerful, is that you're walking away with this really solid foundation to support clients with body image. And it's through a social justice lens. So we're looking at how systems inform our body image, and we're looking at how do we improve people's body image knowing that they're still living inside these systems, and how do we recognize our own privilege and bias to better show up for clients if they hold different identities than our own. Mm-hmm. So check it out, bodyimagecoachcertification.com, and we'll link it in the show notes. And if you have any questions, feel free to reach out to us. So follow the Institute for Body Image on Instagram. And that's what we post a lot of updates, and hopefully we'll be more active on there in 2025, right? New Year's resolutions.
Yes.
All right. Where can people find more of you, Danni, just in case they don't know?
Oh, yes. You can follow me at Amapoundcake on all social media platforms. That's Amapoundcake.
Amazing. Thank you so much. Great conversation. Always fun to catch up with you.
Yes.
Rock on. That was a fun conversation. I hope it didn't come off too judgy. Anyways, you can find the links mentioned at summerinnanen.com/317. Thank you so much for being here today. Rock on. I'm Summer Innanen, and I want to thank you for listening today. You can follow me on Instagram and Facebook at Summer Innanen. And if you haven't yet, go to Apple Podcasts, search Eat the Rules, and subscribe, rate, and review this show. I would be so grateful. Until next time, rock on.